Why am I so riled up?
Well, hello, Folkenflick. It's Bulliam T here. You might want to know what a Bulliam T is, but I'm not going to tell you. Not now, anyway. And what is a Folkenflick? Well, it's all of you people, my imaginary friends at the other end that I'm talking to now. At least I hope I'm talking to someone and not just myself. Anyway, gonna get started on this reading Peter Joseph's books thing, but I want to keep it in a broader context. Keep touching the table here, it rocks the camera. Sorry about that. Anyway, I want to keep it in a broader context. I consume a lot of information. I'm a junkie. I got a problem, but I think I can live with it. It's not destroying the quality of my life. So I'll continue to be an information junkie. Broader context, try to share that with you because, this material is quite grounded in reality. It's got a historical context. It's got a philosophic context. It's grounded in science, engineering, and technology. It's well referenced. And I think it took young Peter quite a long time to put all that together. I wonder who was helping him out because, gosh, that was an undertaking. But it's quite interesting. I think it's a kind of way of thinking about the world that we need right now in 2019. Because I can remember back in 2001 what was going on, and I can remember 1990 and what was going on. And it's sometimes when you look back and you really think about what has happened in the last 30 years, you're like, man, is this Groundhog Day? I mean, are we doing the same thing over and over again? And we're kind of clueless, and a few people are shouting in the wilderness and some people are trying to listen to trees falling in the woods and so on and so forth. And then most of us are just getting on with business, taking care of our families, doing our jobs, and so on and so forth, which is good. And kind of letting the world just kind of sweep us along down the river to the rapids and the waterfall, the inevitable end, in the depths, in the abyss. Or perhaps maybe, no, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, I wanted to say that along with reading the Peter Joseph's thing on the old Kindle. You see what I'm saying? I'm also going to look at this from time to time. This is Niall Ferguson's book, and The War of the World, History's Age of Hatred. And according to this book, from the introduction, I'm only into the first chapter, the age of hatred started a long time ago, and the war started a long time ago, and technically it hasn't ended. And this was published in 2006 and 7 during the last financial crisis, the last bubble to break, to pop. And what could argue that we're still in the age of hatred? It certainly didn't end when somebody said, the end of history and all that stuff, the Berlin Wall. I mean, there's a lot of hatred going around. You've got Europe dividing itself up into camps and nation states and extremist groups. I think it all, it's kind of like the Americanization of the world. At one time we're exporting Hollywood and Disneyland, and now we're exporting all of these bizarre memes and divisions and identity politics and whatnot. Whoa, how exciting. Hopefully Europeans and other sensible people around the world will try to immunize themselves from the American meme machine and remain a bit independent from our madness. You see, across the pond, man, it's one extremist place. Like Werner Herzog said once, there are only two really exotic countries in the world, Japan, and the United States of America. Please, I hope I'm not misquoting. I'll look it up, put it in the show notes. But it's true, because I spent 10 years in Japan, and I'm in Hong Kong now, and I grew up in Ireland and the United States of new miracles. I mean America. And America is an exotic place. It's beautiful, it's powerful. It's an amazing country with a lot of really fantastic people, creativity, science, engineering, and technology. It's been a leader in the world, arguably since after World War II, perhaps before that, even during the Age of Empire. But it's very interesting to note, Niall Ferguson starts off this book with a kind of 911 thing. Only he's not talking about 2001, he's talking about 1901. So 100 years before our 9/11, that most of us probably remember. And reading through this first chapter, I tell you, it doesn't seem much different from today or 2001. I mean, you have these global players, global capital, nation states, power centers, racism, hatred, scapegoating, all that kind of thing. The things that we see today, and let's not bring up human nature, please. I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, there are things we can learn about our nature, but there is no one human nature. All right? But anyway, reading through this, it's pretty amazing. I mean, you notice that, for example, he has this quote about when the British sent troops in to quell the Boxer Rebellion. And there was a newspaper advertisement in the Times of London. And it goes like this: Chinese war loot. Before disposing of loot, it is advisable to have it valued by an expert. Mr. Larkin, 104, New Bond Street, values and buys Oriental art specialties. Isn't that great? So you go over there and you fight and you loot. You go back and sell it to some guy in London. And he also mentions, the kinds of diseases and things that were going on back then, the different corporations and all the stuff. I mean, you can go back to an archive, and I'm sure that's what Niall Ferguson does when he's researching to write a big book like this. And he reads those old newspaper articles. I mean, you can go back quite a long way and find lots of printed material. And even back in the 19th century, lots of photographs. Remember those photographs of the Civil War in the United States and things like that. That's pretty amazing historical record. So there's lots and lots of information materials you can go back to. Nowadays, we live in our world, and there's nothing but a flood of really twisted, biased information coming at us from all sides all the time. And we seem pressured into having to choose teams. I'm going to be with this one, they're going to be with that one. There's another book I'll mention some other time, but it's all about how the media is creating hatred in tribal groups, so niche markets for its product, and it's learning how to target us in very specific ways. I mean, how can we keep up? And we're not going out to the park and to the softball diamond or the football pitch and hanging out with people anymore like we used to. So we're getting more and more alienated from each other, I think. And while all of this kind of thing happens, you do have a lot of people with great ideas. We have the technical, scientific, engineering expertise. We have the wealth. We have the manpower and the woman power. And we have the resources to make a world that's a lot better than the world we have now, regardless of what Steven Pinker says. But we lack the will to do it because I think we lack the imagination to imagine what could be. And that's the big thing that's lacking You know, just that ability to step outside of the bubble and say, man, I can imagine that. You know, what if we did it that way? What if we tried it, even on a small scale? Some city or some country somewhere, some small country, just kind of making little steps. But now, because of a number of things that I harp on about, but I can't stop harping on about it because it's going to get us all killed, is inequality, nuclear armaments, and nuclear proliferation, the potential to backslide back into some kind of world war situation, which let's hope that never happens. And climate change, which is going to put pressure on all of us. Each and every one of us alive today is going to feel that pressure. And the sooner we can get together across the world, yes, we need an international collaboration, as if that hasn't been done before. And we have to come together as Homo sapiens and figure out solutions to this. Buckminster Fuller said back in the 60s, he talked about connecting the global electrical grid. And he knew back then there were so many inefficiencies in that grid system. And it just didn't make sense. And he proved way, way back in the 60s how to fix that. And if there had been a will to do that, I think we wouldn't be in this predicament that we're in now, if people would have followed those types of, people who were into science and engineering and solutions and stuff like that, and not so much into the money, which is the reason why these solutions get bogged down and bowled over, because there are powerful moneyed interests that want to make sure these things don't happen. It's not exactly like a conspiracy theory, it's an actual conspiracy. I mean, you do have people in smoke-filled rooms smoking cigars and saying, hey, we got to stop this electric car thing. We got to stop. We got to keep people smoking cigarettes is what we have to do. We have to deny climate change is human caused. It's just an act of God, and who knows when it's going to get bad. We have no data on it, except we do have data on it. I can't even think of the term for the amount of data we have on it, and for the overwhelming scientific consensus that you've heard about for at least 20 years. But never mind that. You want to be in denial because there's nothing you can do about it. Life is tough. Between shopping and moving around and being a digital nomad and working for the digital economy. Oh, okay, never mind. I know that's exhausting. But if you're making $100,000, an individual making $100,000 a year, or the equivalent somewhere, you're probably really comfortable with the way things are. And if you have the illusion, and you probably do, that that situation is going to last forever, why would you want to rock the boat? You might fall out. You may be far from shore. You might get eaten by a shark or a killer whale. Even though I think killer whales are pretty nice, actually. I don't think they'd eat you. But maybe they would. Anyway, or you're a couple making $200,000 a year. Status quo is pretty nice for you. But there's a lot of people in the world that don't raise up to that bar where the status quo is just like heaven or West Virginia. So, folks, even those of us who are doing pretty well are going to have to face the music one of these days. My own ambition is when the music stops, my chair has a really beautiful view, and I feel comfortable and relaxed within myself, and I die strong and healthy with a smile on my face, and probably cracking up like I just ate a whole bag of magic mushrooms. All right, that was a bit lame. But anyway, that's why I want to share this with whoever is listening, because it's not like you can't get this information and read it on your own. You don't need some loudmouth weirdo. Or maybe you do. Wait a minute. Alex Jones? Oh, whatever. Or the YouTubes. Wait a minute. This is going out on the YouTubes? Well, you don't, yeah, you need it. Okay, you need it because you need somebody to inspire you to be curious about it. To say, what if? Can you imagine that? And later we'll have a jingle and it'll be fun. What if? Can you imagine that? Like that guy who has that camera thing. And it's all I want is a perfect camera. All I want is a perfect camera. It's really cute. He's funny. He's a strange guy, but he's really funny. I think he's funny. I got a weird sense of humor. Anyway, there's a lot of great people on the YouTubes, as you well know. I may or may not be one of them in the future. But I'll give it my old, out of college try. Anyway, this is a good book. I would recommend it because it's going to put today in a vast, sweeping, dramatic, historical context. And maybe you won't take what you have right now as much for granted when you see how many times it's been taken away from masses of people. Anyway, stop that rant. So I'm going to read from this one, and rather than have you watch me read something, which is pretty damn boring, I'll just record it and I'll put some pictures up to look at, and we'll do 1 page a day starting soon. And you can tune in and listen to that. And then after I read that, I'd like to have a conversation with somebody, anybody, about that page. So, it's dense. There's a lot of information in this little book. And it's interesting ideas, nothing brand new, but very interesting. And well put together, well structured, and well thought through. And it's not rocket science, computer programming, cold fusion or anything. I'll just read something real quick. Living off the land limited to the habitat's natural regeneration to an accelerating trend of environmental control and resource manipulation. The development of agriculture and the creation of labor-easing tools was the beginning of what can be observed today, where the spectrum of the human capacity to utilize science for the alteration of the world for our advantage appears virtually unlimited. And he has lots of good notes in here, about his references, so you can see primary sources. Where's Peter getting these ideas? My God, he must be a genius. There's a footnote here. Reference: exponentially accelerating information technologies could put an end to corporations. ScienceProgress.org. But he also references lots of old classics and books, And Milton Friedman. No, we don't like him, but, he's referenced. Anyway, it's a damn good book. And after I'm finished with this one, I'm going to read the new human rights movement and talk about that one too. And I'd really like to get local people together to have discussions about this. Not really debates, but discussion. Because I want to trigger the imagination. That's my tiny small part, because I have a really good imagination. I have lucid dreams, and I can even walk down the street and have a lucid daydream. And it's better than any movie I've seen in a long, long time. Seriously. I mean, I like the stories and stuff, but man, I'm telling you, when I get into that dreaming state, it's more than a fugue state. I mean, it's more than some transcendental, spiritual anomaly that's like throwing me out of the mundane world and into something akin to some kind of otherworldly, out-of-body experience. And I don't mean to be too metaphysical, or too spiritual. And I'm not gonna listen to Sam Harris's meditation app on camera. Would never do that to anyone. I will meditate in my own way, thank you. I won't tell you what my mantra is. Anyway, Folkenflick. You don't have to say it in a German accent or any other accent, but it's pronounced Folkenflick. Okay? That's my nickname for you all. My folks. You're the movie in my mind. What I imagine to be listening to me out there. I hope you're not too hateful or mean. Don't troll me, man. Don't troll me. And I won't tase you, bro. I won't tase you. But anyhow, that's what's going to happen, so I'm going to leave it at that for today. I'm sorry if I rambled on and on and on. Remember, right now, today, the satellites are in the skies. Everything's working. The electricity is on. You can see that reflection back there. That's light. LED light. The food is in the stores. The farms are still producing produce. There is still water coming out of the tap. And I don't have to contemplate. No, I'm not going to say that. That's depressing. Okay, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And just to be silly, I'm going to say goodbye.
Concrete. Hey, we need more concrete!